If mastery is where the rubber hits the road when it comes to producing high-performance video content, then your core values are the individual treads. And we're now going to dig deeper into the importance of knowing your core values. So to begin with, I want to talk about this concept of long-standing relationships and how that applies to core values. And when you have a long-standing relationship, it's usually an indicator that the two parties that are in that relationship have an alignment to their core values. And we can see this in areas such as marriages, friendships, partnerships, religious affiliations, and even if you've been playing on a sports team for a long time, in any of these, if these are long-standing relationships, it usually means that there's a connection or an affinity between people's values, and specifically their core values. Now, conversely, when you have a conflict with others, it's also an indicator of a misalignment of core values. For example, let's look at the biggest conflicts we generally see in marriages, and those are on things like money, raising children, and the division of household tasks. And let me give you an example of how this actually looks. So let's say you have one person in a marriage who believes in being fiscally responsible, and they think that your credit card debt should always be paid off, you never overspend, and you basically stay within your means. Well, if they're married to someone who has a belief that, you know what, I don't know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow, and I think we should live life to the fullest, and yeah, whatever, we've got credit card debt, but you know what, we'll get to it later. Well, there is a really clear indicator of a conflict between two core values, and all three of these are conflicts of a misalignment of core values. Let me give you another example of a conflict in core values. And let's look at work relationships. Well, have you ever heard the term, you never leave a job, you leave a supervisor? Well, that's an indicator of a misalignment of core values. So let me allow me to give you an example. Let's say you have an individual that just really wants to do his 40 hours a week and they don't want to give any more. They just basically want to have their work life and their home life and keep those very separate. Well, if that person has an employer who thinks that his staff should give 110% and work on the weekends and put in overtime and be checking his email all the time, there's another indicator of a misalignment of core values, because one person goes, no, I just want to do my job, and the other, and the manager or the owner is saying, you're not committed to this company. Well, neither of those are correct. It's just, again, a misalignment of core values. So if there's one takeaway from this module, it's the understanding that when relationships work or don't work, it's usually because of an alignment or a misalignment of core values. I'd like you to think about some relationships that you've had where there's been conflict and put on the core values lens on it. Well, think about what that conflict is really about and how your core values and the other person's core values likely differed. Now, I suspect you're asking yourself, well, that's great information, Luke, but what does this have to do with creating outstanding video content? And that's a good question. And I'm going to answer that by asking you this. Think about the videos you like to watch. Well, it's very likely that the content resonates with your core values. There's a reason you're watching them for a reason, especially if you go back to the same ones over and over again. Something about it works for you. Well, of course there's some exemptions to this rule, but for the most part, it's about an alignment of your core values. Or let's look at what videos you share with someone. It's probably because you think they'll appreciate them. And this is a strong indicator that your values and their values are in alignment. The rule of thumb is that there's a core relationship between people watching videos and their core values. Or said differently, you watch someone's content because it aligns with you, or you're aligned with the messenger. And the sooner you understand this and keep this in the back of your mind when you're creating content, the better your content will be. Because your content will resonate more with your target audiences. That's why knowing who your avatar is extremely important, because if you know what their core values are, then you can create content that resonates with them. So when it comes to producing high-performance video content, you should always be asking yourself, how are my core values being reflected in this video? And if you can't answer that question in a clear, succinct way, you're lacking clarity in your message. Now, at the end of the section, you're going to be seeing some additional resources, and I have a worksheet that looks like this. and we're going to talk about it some more, but it is the video production questionnaire. And it is absolutely outstanding for you to get clarity, and that's a resource that you can have, that you can download, from this course. Okay, so those are my thoughts on core values and the importance of them. We're now going to talk about some other thoughts I have on mastery. So stay tuned, that's next.